So here we are. We are New Jersey Paranormal. If you don't know us by now, you should. I'm John. This is Chris. Um, we do a lot of different live investigations. We do live interviews. We do just discussions on different paranormal subjects. This is one we've been wanting to do for a while. We have been wanting to have you guys, the people that watch us, follow us, come on and tell your paranormal stories. It's something we've been talking about for, God, I don't know how long about doing that. Hey, Kevin, Angela, Carol. And tonight we finally have a bunch of people lined up. Nora, you're not backstage yet, unless you're down further.
She might be down further.
I'll remove people as we go and bring more people on. I have 3 people lined up already. There's 2 more that we're going to bring on as we go. If we have time after them, then yeah, Kevin, if we have time, I'll send you the link and we'll bring you on as well. The way we have to do this is kind of wonky. It's just not regular. The links had to be sent out beforehand, so these guys are waiting backstage so we can bring them on one at a time. First time we're doing something like this, so hopefully this actually works out.
And I want to start off saying thank you for all of you that are doing this, because I know it takes a lot of courage and guts to get up and do this and show it's different when you're anonymous and you're in the background telling people your story, but when you're willing to put yourself out there and be vulnerable and share it, it's very much appreciated. And we know that, it's a little hard to sometimes to do. I learned to do that with my own story, and it took me a while. So thank you guys for having the courage to do this and talk to people and share.
So without further ado, our first guest, I feel like this is like David Letterman or Johnny Carson, like where we should have a band. I'm going to pop up our first guest here. Hey, there she is.
Hey there. How are you?
We got to move over.
Yes, sir.
Please state your name for the audience.
So my real name is Lynn Perry. I also go by Raven, hence both names, because I'm Raven on the Facebook page. And I wanted to say thank you to both of you for providing the safe space to discuss this sort of stuff, because it's stuff that I didn't always talk about, but it is part of my story. So thank you. It's part of my life. It's part of who I am. So thank you for
thank you for doing it.
Absolutely.
We put it out there to a lot of people, and there were a decent number, 6 or 7, but we've known you for a while. You're a friend of ours, so we thought, let's give you this chance. I didn't really, I read through some of them, but I didn't really want it to be, I want it to be organic. I didn't really want it to be me telling the story. So we're going to kind of try to narrow this down to maybe kind of first paranormal experiences type of thing.
Okay.
Do you mind? Do you want to talk about, again, when you first experienced, you believed in it from an early age, or? So
I had some stuff beforehand. Like I found out recently that I had night terrors as a kid, which I didn't remember at all. I do remember having some psychic experiences, like predicting things or knowing things were going to happen, knowing like who was on the phone before somebody answered, that type of thing. So I guess I kind of always knew there was something, but my first real experience was so undeniable that I couldn't, it was obvious what was going on. So I'm originally from Philadelphia. I lived in a row home, 5 people, 1 bathroom, stuff that you wouldn't do nowadays. And I would have probably been in my early teens. I was old enough that my mom didn't complain about me staying up later than everybody else. And so I was in the bathroom getting ready for bed, and I heard somebody walking by. So I opened the door to say, I'll be out in a minute, but there wasn't anybody there. But I could still hear the footsteps. Like walking from my parents' room through the hallway towards my room. And so I just closed the door and just stood there like, okay, what was that? And I somehow instinctively knew that something or someone was there, even though I couldn't see them.
And how old were you at the time?
I was probably 13 or 14, somewhere in there. Unfortunately, my sister didn't answer my emailed her. So this actually started after the original owner of our house passed away.
Wow.
Yeah. So we kind of, I knew it was her. My mom denied for years that anything was going on. But
Did you know that he passed away, or you found out after?
oh no, so it was a she,
Oh,
and her relative, I don't know if it was her niece, maybe it was her niece, lived next door to us.
okay.
So what must have happened was she probably got to the point where she couldn't take care of herself, and they made her sell the house to my parents.
Hmm.
And she always called it her house, even though she moved out of the house. And they were like, no, this family lives there now. So she's like, no, 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 it's my house. It's my house. So after she passed, it wasn't really a surprise that things started to happen.
So she was basically forced out of the house because of health reasons.
That's my guess. My sister didn't respond to my questions, which is weird. She sees all my emails except this one. But my guess is based on her age that was probably what happened.
She younger than you or older?
My sister's older. I have two older sisters. Okay. And she remembers everything. And she's
was it only the footsteps, or was there more?
So no, it got much worse. So I heard the footsteps, I just stood in the bathroom for a few moments, and then I just ran into my room and did the whole pull the covers over your head kind of thing. And then I didn't really think anything of it. And then things started disappearing. So like Tupperware cups started disappearing. And they don't melt in the dishwasher. If they would have, we would have noticed. And steak knives started disappearing. Money started disappearing, like little change or dollars. Stuff would disappear, and a week later it would show up someplace else. So she wasn't really dangerous. She was just being mischievous. But I was definitely her favorite person to pick on. Her favorite thing to do was in the middle of the night, she would stand at the bottom of my bed and bang on it as hard as she could and wake me up.
Oh my God.
And
you knew her in life?
Sort of.
Okay.
Yeah, I did kind of like I remember what she looked like, so I knew her enough in life. Yeah. Okay. But I think it was the fact that I was the only one in the house reacting to something happening that she was like, okay, something on you. I think she was probably trying to get her house back and thought maybe she could scare us out of the house. So she would do that. And I told my mom, oh, you jumped yourself awake. And I kind of know the difference between jumping myself awake. Well, I found out years later that my mom knew what was happening, but didn't want me to be scared. It was a few months before she died. She admitted that the house was haunted because I said something.
Wow.
And I was like, I needed to know that I wasn't crazy. Like but I was like 13 or 14. So she just.
And how many years did you live in the house?
And I lived in the house 27 years, basically.
Get out of here. Was the presence there throughout the whole entire?
We actually gave up. So the very last thing that ever happened is, so the door to my bedroom is open and there's a dark hallway. And I started to see like this white form. And I thought, okay, it's just a trick of the light. So I look away and I look back and the white blob is distinctively bigger. And it was bigger. And she was starting to manifest herself in the hallway. And I just pulled the covers over my head. And that's the last thing I remember. I don't know if she did anything after that. But I think at some point she just gave up. Because it just all kind of stopped.
Were you afraid of it? Were you terrified about it? I mean, you said that you knew that it was an experience, a psychic experience. You said that earlier. So having said that, and you being 13, 14, where teenagers, our emotions are high, we're dramatic, everything's,
right.
On the extreme side, so going through that. And you said you had older sisters. I'm assuming you had younger ones too? Younger siblings? No, just older sisters. So was it just you experiencing it or everybody, but everybody else was denying it and you were the only one that was acknowledging it?
So I actually asked my sisters this recently, a few months ago. The oldest one, she's 11 years older than I am. She said she never experienced anything, but she was open to the idea that maybe something was going on.
Okay.
My other sister, no, there's nothing happening, nothing. Everything's perfectly logical. There's logical explanations for everything. So if she would have experienced anything, she would have explained it away. But she said she never experienced anything.
See, but this takes you back to the whole, theory of, we talked about this before. If you guys have any questions at all for whoever we have on the screen, just go ahead and we'll relay them to the person who's there. But this goes back to what we talked about I used to have a hard time initially when we first started doing this, especially when we started dealing with private homes and private cases. I had a hard time understanding why one person was getting all the activity, and yet there was 5 or 6 other people in the home, and not one of them had seen, had heard, had experienced any of it, you know? So now I kind of get it a lot more all these years later, because again, you were more intuitive, sensitive, whatever the word is, you know.
Carol
And
has a great
obviously-
question for her.
Well, can we follow up on
Yeah.
that comment? Thank you.
So, well, I was just going to say that my mom must have experienced something, because when I said to her, I swear this house is haunted, she said, I know. But she never really elaborated on what was happening. To answer Chris's question about being scared, I think I was more freaked out than scared. Like, kind of like, what's going on? As opposed to, holy crap. Right? Like, I was never in a panic. I never went panicking to my parents, oh my God, something's going to... And maybe part of it was because I didn't think anybody else knew what was happening. I just kept it to myself.
So you didn't feel threatened by what was going on?
Not really. I just always felt she was more mischievous than dangerous.
All right, 2 questions you want to...
Yeah, Carol would like to know, did anything happen to you physically before you started seeing things? Anything traumatic or something that might have...
Yeah, a couple of things.
We're not going to get too personal.
No, I know. Oh, no. It's nothing weird. Nothing weird. No, so the joke in my family is I'm the son my parents never had, because I was just like running around playing more games and cops and robbers and all that kinds of stuff. So I had broken bones, all kinds of stuff. The big thing was I had an accident. This is going to sound weird. I had an accident with my face when I was like 5 or 6.
Oh.
Like skinned part of my face off. Like horror movie kind of stuff. Yeah, it was bad. You can't tell, but it was bad. So I mean, that would have been some of the traumatic
So
stuff.
you didn't feel anything though before you started seeing them? There wasn't any kind of big traumatic thing that happened prior to you having the ability to...
Not that I remember. Not immediately before. No, it was just like one day she just decided to walk down the hallway, and my mom was like, "Good."
Chris would like to know, did anything follow you after you left this house?
After she left.
My mom did. So Marion had given up. I really think that was the previous owner of the house. I think she just gave up because we weren't leaving.
Yeah, she eventually got that it wasn't her home anymore,
right,
and
got the idea
time to
that
move on, and
right, like it's time to go wherever you're supposed to be.
which is a lot of, again, you watch a lot of these shows, and even in our experience, you kind of find that that's what they mean by kind of learn how to live with the spirit that's there, because in most cases, it's like Lynn said, I mean, they will move on when they realize this isn't my home anymore. This isn't my family. This isn't what I remembered. And
it's been my experience, because the house I lived in before this one was definitely haunted as well. It's been my experience, that my personal experience, that if you have spirits in your house and you draw boundaries, they will respect them.
Yeah.
Like you can figure out how to live respectfully with one another. Like when you do this stuff, it's not cool, but this is okay. Like that kind of thing. My mom passed away a few months before I got married and before I left the house. And she definitely followed me to New Jersey for sure. And she's actually followed me to this house. I know she's in this house too. But no, so I would say Marion just finally went, either she went to another relative's house, or she just finally moved on and gave up. And
well, I appreciate you coming on. I appreciate you sharing. I hope you didn't mind it too much. It was painless, right?
Oh, it's painless. I'm to the point where I'm embracing my weird, and this is part of my story. This is who I am.
I've been doing that for 30 some odd years now, so you're in the club. Thank you, Lynn. I appreciate it.
Thank you, guys. Appreciate it.
I'm going to remove you now, and we're going to move on to the next one. I don't know how to kick her out of the feed here. All right. Kick from studio. Oh. All right, guys, just give me 1 second here as we rotate. There's Wendy. I see you there. All right. Please state your name for the audience.
I think, were you supposed to have Wendy, or were you supposed to have me?
No, you.
Laura. Oh, me. Laura. Oh, hi. Okay.
Unless you want to pretend you're Wendy, go right ahead. Make up a story that Wendy would tell.
Well, thank you so much for having me on. I appreciate it.
Okay, so you have a pretty, I browsed through your email, and I was showing it to Chris. and it was a good 4 paragraphs or more, as I remember. So let's try to
Condense it.
condense that, yeah, as
Right.
much as we can, and
Mhm,
I'll let you
mhm.
start.
So, I basically started feeling paranormal activity when I was very, very young. Probably, well, I say young, I mean 6, 7. Um, but around the time when I was about 13, the very first time I felt something was I was in middle school and I was in band class and I used to play the flute. And I remember the flutes all sat down in the lower level of the auditorium where we sat. And I had very short hair at that time. I didn't have long hair. And I was just sitting there and waiting for the class to start. And I felt someone put their, like someone came behind me and very gently put their hands on my shoulders, like a squeeze, like a comforting squeeze. So I thought somebody was doing that. And I turned around and there was no one there. I looked,
Hmm.
there was no one behind me. All the kids were still filtering in. So that was like the very first time. And I was just like, what the heck was that? So I didn't really think
How
anything
old were
of it.
you, would you say, at this point?
I was in middle school, so I was
Okay,
about 12, 13.
right.
So fast forward like a month or two after that, a couple friends of mine, we were playing with the Ouija board. We were
That's what
just
I read.
playing around and we didn't know what we were doing. We were actually interested in some boys in the school and we were hoping that we could ask someone if we were going to find love. So we played with it. We played for it
Who
with it.
better than a demon?
She was going to
Right,
conjure
right,
a boyfriend.
right. So we played with it for a while and then we went on to something else. But very soon after, my parents and I started to notice activity in our home. We would hear things. My brother and sister had moved out by that point. They had gotten married when
Well,
I was
don't jump too far ahead here,
around
because
14,
I
15.
want
So
the
they
Ouija board part of it.
moved out. So they didn't experience.
The Ouija board part of it, when you and your friends were doing this, right?
What was that?
The Ouija board part of it, when you were actually doing it, was it moving on its
Right.
own?
Mhm. We thought it was. The one thing that I noticed that was odd to me was the planchette that you put your fingers on started to get warm.
Okay.
And it wasn't a warm day. We did it in like midwinter, and
Hmm.
my fingertips started to go numb for some reason. And I don't
Okay.
know why. And a couple of the other girls said, "Yeah, my fingers are bothering me too." And we were just like, let's just put it away. So we didn't think anything of it and we just stopped playing with it. And
Okay.
then, like I said, we started, the first thing that I noticed was we would start hearing things in the home. We would start hearing things move, whispering. My dad would smell perfume, and I'm not a perfume person, nor is my mother. My mother didn't wear, and he said, no, 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 this perfume is like really ancient perfume. He said it's something very like strong and pungent, and he smells it to this day, and they don't even live in the home anymore.
Wow.
But yeah, yeah. Um, so over the years, things just got worse and worse as far as hearing things move. I had a rocking chair in my bedroom that my friends would come over and we would watch TV, and one of my friends would sit there and rock. And we had carpeting on my floor, but my father would be sitting in the living room below my bedroom and hearing my friends rock in the rocker. So one day, fast forward when I'm like 20 something, my mother and me were at work because I was still living at home, and my dad was retired, and he's sitting watching TV and he heard the rocker going up in my bedroom in the middle of the day.
Did they know you had played with the Ouija board?
They did not.
Ooh.
I didn't tell them until many years later.
And you actually did the Ouija board in the house?
I did.
So here's
Yeah.
the deal. Again, just based on your story, I think back to Lynn with this one too, because you claim again that when you were younger, you felt something touch you and nothing was there. So let's say that indicates some kind of, again, intuitiveness, sensitive mediumship thing. Then you go and mess with the Ouija board. So when we talk to psychics or mediums in the past, especially when it came to psychic kids, they would say the reason that spirits would go to children was because they're, like an open channel. They can't control
Like a
if they
beacon.
have those mediumships, sensitive abilities, and the spirits would just kind of go to the beacon, to the light. And it sounds to me like you may have had that around you initially when you were younger, and then you went and messed with a Ouija board and you just let something in.
Right. Right. And it never the only time, and I wrote in the email, I call it the night to remember. There was one night that absolutely scared me to death. And my parents, real quick, my parents went away for the weekend and I was by myself. I was in my late 20s getting ready to move out, and I was making dinner, and I was in the kitchen, had nothing on, no TV, no nothing, and I heard a whisper in my right ear say, "What you
Oh my
doing?"
God.
Like that. And I was like, what was that? And I didn't I didn't even think about it. I just was making dinner. And then when I told a friend later what it was, he says, "Oh, I know what he was saying." The person saying, he's saying, "What you doing? What you doing?" And I heard, "What you doing?" Like very quickly. But
Yeah.
then I finished dinner and I started to get ready to go to bed. And my bedroom was upstairs. And my mother had sun catchers on 3 windows in the front of our home, in their living room. They had 3 large windows. And my mother had sun catchers hanging by suction cups. I went to go past the windows, and I'm going up my steps, and out of my peripheral, I see and hear something fly and hit the floor. And I turn, and with that, the second sun catcher flew off the window, and the third sun catcher flew off the
Oh
window.
my God.
Now, just like quickly to say, they were hung up by suction cups, and
Right, right.
environmental,
Yeah, yeah.
conditions could make those
Sure.
fail, right? So if they failed, the sun catcher would fall straight down.
Right.
These things flew
Oof.
out into the middle of the floor,
Yeah,
and
no.
and
Physics,
I
that's not possible.
no, and I stood there, and I remember my heart pounding so hard, and you could hear it in your ears, like the thump, thump, thump. And I got angry, and I said, "What are you?" I said something like, "What the hell are you doing? What are you trying to do to me?"
Oh my God.
And I said, "Knock it off. I'm going to bed." But I was like really scared. So I went upstairs, went into my bedroom. I didn't even go in the bathroom to go to the bathroom or brush my teeth. I went in the bathroom, shut the door. 2 minutes later, I heard something hit my door, and I didn't dare open the door. I had no idea what the hell this was, right? I went to bed with all the lights on. I got up in the morning and I knew I had to open up that door, right? I knew I had to go out. I opened up the door and there was a book not blocking the door. I was able to open the door, but I felt the door like hit something. And I was like, I pushed and I saw it was a book off of a bookshelf that was down the hall from my bedroom.
Are you
So
kidding me?
no, I'm not kidding you. Something
Holy
grabbed the book.
cow.
Yeah. Yeah. And so right after that, like I moved out. I didn't move out because of that, but I,
Right.
got my big britches on, my good big girl britches on, and moved out and got my own place. But the activity continued. My mom and dad sold the home last year, and it continued to the day they moved.
Oh my God.
Someone on here had the question of, did any of your friends that did the Ouija board with you have experiences themselves after that?
I don't remember if they did. Like the thing with it was we didn't talk about this, right?
No.
Right, right. Back then it was kind of
we
taboo.
didn't
Kind of.
we didn't go around, like we didn't, when people visited, we didn't say, "Oh, by the way, we've got a ghost in our house."
It's not like
By the way,
today.
I let a demon in
Yeah.
just in case
Right,
you
right.
get a
People
book
would
thrown
think
at
you're
you or
nuts, right? So
yeah.
we did not speak about it. And I don't remember, I always just kind of shoved it down deep and we lived with it. We just lived with it. But
I'll
it was
tell you what.
never, you know,
I wonder again, this is the way my brain thinks. I wonder if those people who lived there after or even now are experiencing things and they just don't know what or why. You know what I mean? I wonder if that whoever you let in is lingering there still.
I don't know. What's funny is the gentleman that bought it, I don't know him, but
Okay.
every time you go past the house, it's dark as pitch. It looks like
Oh
it's got no
wow.
life in it. It looks like it's got no life in it. I mean, we have a
Wow.
neighbor we're still friends with, and she says there's never any lights on in the house.
It's like a hermit.
Let that be a lesson
Yeah.
to you kids. You see what she did to that home. You do that in your home, you're going to
But
burn the
you know,
next person.
we talk about these experiences. You talk about the sun things coming off the window. You talk about the book hitting the door, the voice in your ear. What kind of trauma as a young woman did that cause for you? Was it anything that kind of stuck with you that made you fearful? Did it affect your social interaction with anyone, or?
No, it made me more intrigued. You know, I was in my 20s and, you know, teens and 20s when this happened.
Yep.
My perspective of what was happening was different then than it is now.
Yeah,
You know,
exactly.
now I've been, as I've grown older and I'm in my 50s, early 50s now. I mean, they're only people, right? So somebody was trying to tell me
Oh
something,
yeah,
trying to
definitely.
tell, you know, and I'm at the point, you know, I think as you get older,
Yep.
your inhibitions, you know, kind of melt away. And no, it didn't affect me. It just made me want more. And I
Yep.
have studied it, and I, you know, watch documentaries about ghosts and things like that. And I'm more intrigued than ever. And it didn't, no, it's just kind of like my dad even jokes about it to this day. Like if something happens in my house now where I live and I have activity in my home,
Oh, boy.
my dad will go, "Woo, it's the ghost."
It's funny. It's like
So
me,
we
I'm
just
the opposite. I'm not intrigued by it. I don't need any more. I don't want to hear the voice. I don't want to be touched. He'll tell you this. This is like, I'm good. I'm not, I got older and like, no, that's behind me. I'd prefer it to stay that way.
Wow. But still, this whole program is about
Yeah.
what did you have an experience that sparked your interest in the paranormal?
And this did.
Here, that was again. Thank you for sharing that with us, Laura. That was really, really wow. Got to be hard to top that, Donna. You're up next.
You're welcome.
She's smiling. Thank
Donna's
you,
got
Laura.
a good one too, though. Thank
You're
you,
welcome.
Laura. I appreciate you coming
Thank
on.
you. Thank you.
All right. So I gotta give me 2 seconds here. I gotta get one out and get somebody else in.
And we're going to bring Donna on.
As you can
Hello,
see,
Donna.
as you
How
can
are
see,
you?
I'm very comfortable.
That's the way to do it.
This is my office.
Okay.
That's a good office to have.
So Donna, I read your message, and I found it very comforting and heartwarming. Yours was the rods, right?
Yes.
Okay, so I'm not going to say any more than that. But for me, I lost my mom when COVID first started.
Oh, I'm
And
sorry.
thank you. I had found myself looking for connection and signs and all these other things desperately, and not getting it, and becoming very frustrated.
Yeah,
And
your message hit us in the heart.
yeah, in the field that I'm
Definitely.
in, I found myself. So I really related to your message, and I'll let you tell the story about what happened.
Okay, so it's really a special story. I'm getting a little teary just talking about it. I'm relatively new to this paranormal stuff. Like I've always been interested my whole life in in like Bigfoot and ghosts and all this stuff, but I had never really been that involved with it. You know, I watched the shows, this and that. So I had an experience at the place I volunteer at, a wildlife sanctuary, and it piqued my interest. There was things that were happening, and I was like, I'm going to really go on one of these ghost hunting things with one of these companies. So I looked it up. I found one, and it was at Eastern State Penitentiary, and I was
Okay.
like, oh, that's a good place. And I had been there before, so I knew how it was set up and everything. So I was like, oh, I want to go at night. So we went in, we did the thing. There was maybe 35, 40 people there, and we broke up into different groups. We went off into one wing, and the girl next to me she was a blonde, she was really pretty, and she got a finger run down her spine. And she jumped off, and I could see her goosebumps, so I knew that she was telling the truth. Like, that's for sure, that happened to her. So we changed groups. We went down to death row, and the woman that happened to be leading our particular group was a medium. So that's always the best when you're on one of those hunts, when you have somebody that can really tell you who you're talking to and everything. So we get down there and the medium is laughing and we're like, what's the matter? And she's like, well, it's apparently the ghosts have communicated with each other and they're really excited to have this blonde girl here. Like they told the ghosts in death row that we were coming, and they were like, oh, there she is. So we were kind of laughing about that. And the medium had these dowsing rods, and she's like, she's trying to use them, and they're still talking about the blonde, like with the yes and the no answers. Like, is this what are you talking about this woman? And they're like, yes.
Right.
And they were asking, we were just communicating. So the medium said, does anybody want to try these? And I thought, oh, I'm going to try and debunk this, because I don't really, I've never seen this before. I'm new to this, but I'm going to debunk it. So I take the dowsing rods and I'm holding them in my hands and I'm looking at them, and have you ever seen them? I'm sure you have.
Yeah, of course.
So, you can't manipulate them no matter what you do. You can't make them turn because they're encased in that handle that keeps you from being able to make them move. So I picked them up and I'm getting the feel of them, and all of a sudden I'm getting chills now. All of a sudden they started turning and pointing at me. And I was like, what is going on? This doesn't seem right. And I shook them out, and I used my hands and I made them go straight again. And they flipped around immediately and started pointing at me again. And so I said to the lady, I said, well, this isn't right. This didn't do this for you, or when you were talking about this other girl. And she's like, I've never seen that before. So I did it for a third time. I shook them out and I manipulated them and put them straight ahead, flipped back immediately. So I was like, what is going on here? And she said, hold on a minute. She goes, I'm starting to get this feeling like there's somebody here for you, and that those rods are for you. And she's starting to describe some things about my mother. Like, do you have this person that has passed? And she was talking about her room and her hobbies and different things that were all hitting the mark. And I was like, oh my goodness, this is crazy. So, losing my train of thought. So I started getting like kind of a little bit emotional, and all of a sudden we were using the ghost box too.
Right.
As she was starting to talk about my mom, all of a sudden over the ghost box in my mother's voice, I hear Donna.
Wow.
So the medium didn't know my name, and she goes, oh, there's somebody here for a Donna. Is there a Donna? And I said, I'm Donna. And she's like, oh, well, this is definitely about you.
Wow.
So I was like getting even more emotional, and I was like, I've had a lot of health problems, and I know my I had to move back from California to live with my folks for a while before they passed, and they were really worried about me. It was a real bad time. So I hope I'm not jumping ahead, but we started again my hands started getting really warm, and I started feeling this tingling in my hands, and it went up my forearms, and it went up my spine, up the back of my head. I got like what I would call a runner's high, which I've never had before, but my head exploded in this euphoria, and then it shot down my spine, and it just stayed there. And I was just like totally, I don't know what the word is. I was just like lit up, like it was like an energy, And so I said, oh my God, Mom, is that you? I said, thank you for everything that you did for me. I'm doing better. I miss you guys. I had been trying to communicate with her with a medium for many years, and she never came through, but she was a very private person. Right. And I think she was probably just getting settled wherever she ended up. And I said, well, thank you for everything you did for me. And then in her voice again, over the ghost box, it says, we're here for you.
Oh my God.
See?
Wow.
Now, I think something unique about that, you said you had been trying with psychic mediums to reach your mom and you just went on a ghost hunt with no expectations. You were just there and she made the connection. Maybe it was time. that wall fell and you were open to that. So it happened.
It was the right medium, the right time. And
I asked her, I said, well, why is this happening now? And she said, well, because the dowsing rods are giving her the power to be able to communicate with you. And, whatever, I don't know anything about them really, but I just know the feeling that I had was just like euphoria.
No.
And I felt so loved and so at ease.
And I think that's the important part, not necessarily the dowsing rods or the box, but the fact that you had a personal experience where it affected you physically and no one else can tell you about that experience. That was your personal connection experience that you felt.
Yeah. I mean, I got out of there. It was like maybe 3 or 4, and I was driving home, and I called a friend in California, and I said, I have to talk to somebody. I'm driving home from Philly to North Jersey, and I was just like, my head was just swimming. I just was like, I can't believe it. And I know for a fact that it was my mother's voice that was talking to me.
Wow. I've read that, and I just, again, for me, it brings back a lot. And it, I had a similar, not what you had, but a similar affirmation type of experience where I knew it was my mom, and I knew she was letting me know in her way, whatever way she could. And, we talk about a lot how we don't know how it works on the other end and how they're able to communicate, when they're able to communicate, and why it doesn't happen for some and others. And again, of all places, at a jail. Mom came through, and I love that. I loved your message, and I just said we have to talk to her, let her tell this to people, because those type of things do happen. I know people talk about a radio playing a certain song.
Yeah, but there's something about a personal connection. Like I said, not just the fact that the dowsing rods or the spirit
energy.
box said, it's the energy that went through you and we know, just like when someone comes up behind you, if it's friend or foe, we've got that intuition. But to have that personal experience for you yourself, and not someone telling you, but you actually experiencing it, you'll keep that forever.
Amazing. And no one could take that from you ever.
And you know what was crazy? Like, my mom was really sick before she died. She died of lymphoma, and she was just sick for years before. And her voice over the box was just like she was like 30 years old and really strong and healthy.
Wow.
And it just gave me such a wonderful feeling knowing that. It was just crazy.
That's all those questions, what happens, or, like you said, are they happy and healthy if there is an afterlife? And bam, out of jail of all places.
We've
like
got,
I said,
we've got a lot of
answers.
people that are making statements that that gave you such a feeling of love. The feeling that you meant that, she wanted you to know she was at peace. Everybody is just like commenting, this is a really good feel good. This is what we want. When we're in the paranormal and searching, this is exactly why we want to affirm that there's a such thing as a paranormal experience, because we do want our loved ones to come back. I lost a daughter. He lost a mom. We want our loved ones to connect to us. Because to have this kind of love for people and this connection, how could that possibly just go away because death happens?
Yeah.
It's not possible.
No.
I don't believe it is.
It changed my life. It changed me. It gave me so much power. It was so empowering.
And did you find yourself, like, with your health issues, did it help you to kind of deal with it a little bit better?
A little bit, because it had been really hard. I mean, I lost my whole life over, an illness. And, I was reduced from being a super duper ER nurse in LA to living home with my parents in a disabled state. And it was like, I had lost my identity. I had lost everything. And here it was, I was getting this affirmation of love. That's all it was just crazy.
Well, Don, I thank you so much for sharing that story. I know it's personal, and I do appreciate it. It means a lot to me that you would do that. And I love that. I mean, I've had the similar, I wish I felt the energy and stuff that you felt, but what I felt was more than I needed from my mom.
Oh, good. I'm glad that it helped.
Well, thank you for joining us. I appreciate it.
Yes, thank you so much.
Right, take care. Have a good night.
Bye-bye.
All right.
That was amazing. That's all I have to say. It was just like to get that type of affirmation, to get that type of a connection with your loved one. Holy cow.
That was, I read that and I was just, and there's our old friend that we haven't seen in days.
Wendy! Isn't she Wendy?
Please announce yourself to the audience, miss.
Hi, I'm Wendy. I've been interested.
And I'm an alcoholic. Say it.
You know what? That's what my mom thought about when I started seeing the paranormal or telling her about what I would see.
Right.
She's like, were you drinking? I'm like, no.
So your mom knows what you're going to talk about.
Hmm?
Your mom knows what you're going to talk about.
My mom, yeah, oh yeah, she doesn't. She's in her 80s. I
Okay.
don't even think she knows what's going on. But
Okay.
and it
So
didn't
Wendy-
happen when I was young. I think the youngest thing I ever remember was like always hearing my name called, turning around and not seeing anybody.
Okay.
But most of my stuff started probably when I was older, 20, 21.
Okay.
Had my children. And the biggest thing I can remember is my children were at their father's house and I was getting ready to go out and I'm in my bathroom upstairs. I'm on the phone with my girlfriend and we're talking and I said, oh, hold on a minute. I'm like, I turn around. I'm like, Andrew, what are you doing? That was be my son. He was running down the hallway, giggling, laughing, like, like, haha, I'm out of my bed because you're on the phone or whatever. And she said, I'm like, well, you're supposed to be in bed. Get back in bed. And my girlfriend said, I thought the kids were at their father's. And I said, they are. And I freaked out.
Oh my God.
I saw his.
I thought you were telling me he was really out of the bed and running around.
No. And it was like, it was him. So it wasn't somebody you could see through. It was his height, like giggling.
A
his
doppelganger?
Giggle. I don't know.
You saw, if it's not, it's his
Yes.
doppelganger.
It was like him.
It might have been a child that looked like him too. I mean, kids,
Yeah. And I was like, get back in bed. She's like, I thought they're at their dad. So I was like, oh God. I said, I'm getting out of here now. You stay on the phone with me until I get out the door. Because I had to go downstairs around, like, it was a little bit dark. I'm afraid of the dark. And I was like so freaked out. That was like what my first, like, I think, huge experience with the paranormal.
So you heard it. You didn't see it.
No, I saw it when I turned around. I heard him giggling and I looked down the hallway because the way the bathroom was situated.
Did you see him from the front or the back?
The front as he passed stairs. So it was that short piece of hallway. Yeah. Yeah. And that freaked me out. Because I did.
It freaked me out too.
I mean, that is like a spirit mimicking a child. That's kind of rare. I've never heard that before.
I mean, it was so real to me. Yeah. And then
a
lot
was
of stuff
real.
It was real. It gave me fear for sure. And there was nobody.
The only time it happened, though?
I'm sorry?
The only time it happened.
The only time that I saw that, yes. I do see apparitions often. I've lived where I'm currently living now for almost 30 years. So a lot of activity is here. But I've also
no idea who and why.
No, I live in an apartment. It's a pretty big apartment complex, and it's random stuff. So I don't know any of these people that appear. The biggest one, again, there was a guy, he appeared by my TV set all the time. And I think it was residual. He was a young man dressed like he was ready for prom. I would talk to him. There'd be no answers. And I could see full head to toe.
Do you think you have mediumship abilities?
I'm sorry?
Do you think you have mediumship abilities?
I can't call on something. It just appears. Right. I know things before they happen. Before I could tell you verbatim what people will say. Not all the time. It's very random. And I haven't honed because at one point I couldn't deal with it anymore. And this when I was I worked at the hospital as a monitor technician. So I watched cardiac monitors on an open heart surgery floor and trauma. And I was at the stoplight where I make the left going to Jersey Shore Medical Center. And I was sitting there at the red light and all of a sudden, and it's again, I don't see anything. I just know it. This whole story unfolded about somebody was going to pass. They were going to code. We call code, right? They go into cardiac arrest.
Right.
I didn't know who or what room. I knew where I would be. I would be in my at the lunch break room, eating vegetables. And my boss would come in, tap me on the shoulder, say, you have to come out. There's a code in progress. And that this person would die.
And
I don't know that there was a time on it. I know I just got chills. Do you know it happened exactly that?
Oh my God.
And the man passed.
So you have premonition.
Yeah, but you know what I'm thinking here too? And this is again the way my brain thinks and the fact that you worked that job and that probably happened more than once, I assume.
For sure, yeah.
So you're kind of around at the moment where several people have passed on.
Yes. Oh, yes.
Again, maybe that's all part of why
maybe
they come to you, and that's all part of
like a connection because she deals
deal
with death. So therefore,
kind of,
you're walking that line where you're witnessing to the death.
Right.
And
Yes,
people
I
taking their
know the
last-
first death that I saw there. I was working at Brick Hospital, but it was an older lady. But I like watched her like kind of take her last breath, and so like first kind of really alive dead person. You know what I mean? Not a apparition that I'd seen, and then there were many more to come after that. But
Wow.
and tragic.
That's such a weird coincidence. I look for things that are kind of like ties, you know, and connections.
Yeah.
The fact that you're in that job, you know, it's like an ER nurse or, you know, ICU nurse or something like that. Being around when a lot of people are taking their last breath or, you know, actually passing. I mean, the spirits are there in theory, leaving and transitioning.
Well, Donna worked at it as an ER nurse.
Yeah, but again, maybe there's some weird cosmic reason that she took that job and she's around that, and then they come to her as well.
Yeah, I got to tell you what Annette said. Annette said you must have a very open heart and mind, and the spirits feel safe and comfortable with you, Wendy.
Well, that's a good thing. I don't think I've been scared once, besides the child thing. When I worked in Starbucks, and I wasn't the only one to see. Again, there was a man. It was a different man that was in my house. I think he was an older man, but I don't want to say older, like 25, 30, but older than that, the teenager that I would say. I thought I was the only one in Starbucks seeing it. Apparently, I was not. The other two managers there did after I had my fright. So I'd go in at 6 a.m. and I'd put the pastries in the pastry case. And I saw the man. And I was like, okay, I'm like, what do you want? What can I do for you? And it turned into a lion and leapt at me. And I went running into the back room. It was like right here and it disappeared. And they're like, oh, did you see the man? I said, not only the man, it turned into a lion. I'm like, wait, you see him too?
Hold on, Wendy. I want you to take the camera and go to your medicine cabinet and open it, please. Just for 5 minutes so I can get a look at
that work?
The screenshot.
No, it was
She
bizarre.
got horse pills in her medicine cabinet.
Right. Wasn't on pills then. I was a lot younger then.
Luann said it best, I think. She said you're like a bridge almost. It's
Maybe.
kind of, you know, wow. Who knew, Wendy? I've known you all these years and I didn't know this story.
No, a lot. Wow. There's a lot of stuff that happens. Like I said, I think every birthday, I was never surprised with anything. Even Christmas, I just knew what everything was.
Well, dang.
You know, even if it was something that was not on my list.
I'm going to wear a foil around my head when I'm around you.
I'll still wait for that.
I want you to know what I'm thinking and going to say.
I'll still wait while you go to the medicine cabinet. Go ahead, Wendy.
No, those were a couple that I had. Oh, the most recent. I've seen shadows in my apartment here, but again, I've had some swirling smoke. I think I sent you guys the pictures. I came into my room and there was just swirling smoke, and it was thick and I'm like, where would that come from?
You're drawing them.
Looking at it for a while before
to you. That's something. Wow.
Yeah, and it ended up going out. There was nobody outside my window. I had the window open, and eventually, and it was very slow moving until it finally dispersed. And I was just like,
I got to use you more often during these ghost hunts.
I know. But wait, because I felt like I've had some attachments too. And I'll just give you one quick last one so you can get on. But I was in for my back. You know, I have back injuries and neck injuries, so I was doing salt floats where you go in like the capsule and you're floating in salt water, highly condensed like salt water. And I had been in there plenty of times before. And I can't tell you if this was after I have attended a ghost hunt or not, because I couldn't really, I don't remember like yesterday. So, but as I got into the salt tub and I laid down, was completely submersed in it, something left my body. It flew up and you could see it had like a wisp here, but then it was bigger here and just flew up and then disappeared. And it was like grayish black. And I just looked, but I didn't feel.
Jim brings up a good point. Are these only male spirits that you're seeing, or have you seen female?
I've seen female child and a female in my room, right across from where I'm sitting right now. Okay. And my son had seen her as well. But yeah, I guess it's mostly men, I guess. Yeah.
Okay. All right, Wendy. Well, thank you. I really appreciate you sharing that. I know it takes a lot to come out and talk about these things, but I think this is a great forum because I feel like you could talk about it and people don't think you're crazy. Definitely.
All right,
we're crazy anyways.
Well, true.
But that has nothing to do with the topic.
Double crazy.
All right, Wendy. Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Have a good night.
All right, you too. Bye-bye.
All right, we got one more on deck, and then we're gonna.
Nora's got a great story.
All right, this one really came on at the last minute here,
and we are so glad.
Hello, Nora. How are you?
Hi, everybody.
So Nora was a late entry, and I almost was going to say we have enough, and then I read what she had written, and I looked at the ad, the link that she attached, and
The story.
there's no way I couldn't
Yeah, I
get this
actually told him that you and I had this discussion at one of the events
But she
that
never
this has
told me.
happened, and I never got around to telling him because he's so busy all the time, But it's just like it's so fascinating. So
Well, I had mentioned about the car the last time you had the interview with John Zaffis, because it was a car that belonged to a person that had been murdered, and that's the story that I was going to be telling tonight.
So go ahead, start that story. Being you started it already.
Well, the young woman had been murdered. She was a 18-year-old student in Cranford, and I had lived in Elizabeth at the time. It was 1978, and it turned out it was her boyfriend who had been arrested for brutally murdering her and assaulting her and everything. She was 18, I was 15, and big story that was going on in Union County at that time. Years later, just to go a couple of years later on that, my brother was a mailman in Cranford and knew her father. Okay. He had her car that she had gotten when she was in high school. I think it was maybe it was going to be a graduation gift or something, but she had that for a while, and he had it in his garage for a number of years. This had maybe about 10 years later, and he just didn't want to have it around anymore because it was just too many memories and things were going on. So my brother mentioned to me, okay, I mentioned to him that I was looking for a car. So we talked, and I purchased it from him. And it was a cute little car. And as I remember, as I was driving away from the home, her father stopped me, and he says, I want to wish you good luck with the car. And just so Michelle loved this car. She was always in it. And everybody seemed to know that it was her. As I found out, just a few weeks after using it, I had to drive through Cranford from Elizabeth to Scotch Plains where I work, and I had her car. And when I drove through Cranford, I would have people seeing me, and people would like get ready to wave and then go, oh my goodness, that's right. It's not Michelle anymore. It's not her car anymore. So that was one thing, and that was not a big problem or anything. But I did, ever since I first had the car, I would feel just a presence in it. Of her, and sometimes I would get, of course, like the little whiff of a cologne or a perfume or whatever. I guess back then we used to wear like a Love's Baby Soft or something, so it was something always nice like that.
Right.
But I always felt that there was somebody in the car, that somebody was sitting in back of me. Like I would look, like you do in the rearview mirror, and every once in a while I felt like I would see somebody or a presence in there. I would play the music. The local radio station, and every once in a while, it always seemed like whenever I was driving, it seemed like a Fleetwood Mac song would come on, and just I would feel like almost like a humming in the back seat. So it was, and my mother would always say it was the chatty Cathy. It was always carrying on conversations either by myself or with everybody else, and I got so comfortable when I was driving that I would have conversations with Michelle. Because again, she was only 3 years older than I had been. So, I was already in my early to mid 20s, and she would have been just a few years older. And somebody had said to me, well, my hair is red now, but at the time my hair was darker. They said to me, oh, you have a little bit of a resemblance to her. So I felt maybe that she felt comfortable being in the car that she had loved to be in, because I was a young female. I kind of looked like her a little bit. And, I think that always kind of was like a nice little thing, because I'm not a big driver. And I remember a lot of times it was like, okay, I was just, starting out and stuff. And I says, okay. And I always felt calm when I was driving, because just having her in there. Yeah. And a few years later, I found out she had been buried in St. Gertrude Cemetery, if anybody knows the area in Colonia, where my family is there. I have a lot of friends there. I have a lot of people that are there. So a few years later, I found her grave, and it wasn't too far from my parents. Wow. So I would go to see her after I would go with them. And it was always a very quiet thing. And it was always when I would go to see her, just to, say a prayer and to say hello and talk to her a little bit. I think she's buried with her mom.
there was always like a bird would always seem to appear and start flying around. And then one time the bird ended and it was butterflies. I would all of a sudden, for some reason, butterflies would show up in the spot where we were.
God.
So that was always, and when this was going back to when she was murdered, they turned out to be her boyfriend had done it. He was found guilty. He spent time in jail. He was let out in 1992. The day that I found out, because it was a big thing in the newspaper about where he was going to live, and they couldn't believe he had been let out after what he had done to her. I got some flowers and I brought him to her grave.
Wow.
And that's, I think, when the butterflies actually had started. And
Wow.
to this day, I mean, I still go to see her when I have a chance, when I'm at the cemetery. And just, I just always feel nice calmness when I'm over by her. And like I said, I talk to her and just, tell her that, and I heard from some people years later, and they found out, we mutual friend or something, and they had said some stories about her, about how wonderful she was and how the whole town was devastated when.
But how bizarre is this that you bought a vehicle and you're just buying a vehicle, your first vehicle that turned out to be this girl's, and yet you've been entwined your whole entire life with this.
I'm having trouble hearing you for some reason.
Can you hear me now?
It's kind of like a fuzzy almost, it sounds.
Wow.
See if you can do it.
You hear me?
Yeah, you're both like that. I don't know why. For some
I don't
reason.
know why either.
Yeah, all of a sudden. I don't know. Go ahead, Chris. Try again.
No, I was just saying that, like, how, you bought this vehicle and then you've been intertwined with her your whole entire life.
Yeah, pretty much.
Someone you never met.
Exactly. And anybody knows me, they know that I know a lot of people. I have a lot of friends, and I know a lot of people. You can ask me anybody in Union County, and I probably pretty much know a lot. So,
Maybe Michelle is coming in with us. Maybe that's it. Maybe her spirit, because you started to get garbled too.
Oh, okay. Well, yeah, that could be something.
That's happened before, actually.
That has happened before.
Yeah. I think that, again, I've read that, and I just, these are, I call it a story because there's lack of a better word for it, but these experiences, I should say, are like from movies. You know what I mean? They almost don't sound real, but the fact that they actually happen to people, that was a connection that was meant to be made. You know what I mean? And it's so weird how stuff like that works. It's so unexplainable that but it makes you feel good that it's possible.
But something even bigger happened here is that she bought this car, and you're sharing this story about Michelle. Her story is going on. What happened to her? Her life was cut short, but yet you talk to her. And John and I have a theory that even if a spirit's not attached to something, if you're talking or you're trying to communicate, we actually, maybe we're bringing them to us by doing that.
Channeling them in, or just, they come around.
Because I think her father said that a few people had looked at the car, but for some reason he wanted me to have it.
That's something.
It was one of those.
Meant to be. It was meant to be.
Exactly.
Wow.
So crazy.
Thank you, Nora. I appreciate it. Thanks for doing this.
Of course. Thank you. Thank you.
Right, have a good night.
Thanks.
All right. Wow. For a first time out and for having some difficulty setting this whole thing up, that was probably one of the best live streams we've ever done. And we've had Jason Hawes on. We've had all these guys, Chip Coffee.
Kudos.
And I think that was definitely, thank you so
each
much.
And every one of you that came on
to
and
Lynn,
shared.
Donna, Wendy,
Laura,
and
Nora.
Thank you guys so much for sharing
Lynn.
your stories. I mean, that's what this page, what we do, that's what this is all about.